She's fresh. 25 and a 50. 50. I can't believe it. We're giving her away. Turn her once, turn her twice. Let them see underneath. What a heifer. Look, here we go. 1950 to $2,000. 2050.
Hi, I'm Paul Salman, economics correspondent for Public TV and former business school teacher. And in keeping with the motto of these videos, repetition is the soul of understanding, here's a brief recap of the last video, which featured a barnyard quartet of cows, curves, supply, and demand.
Sold her $2,350. Now that's what economics is all about, isn't it?
Exactly what that is.
We explained that the supply curve theoretically goes up, reading left to right, which means simply that as the price of something, a good like cows, for instance, or a service like house cleaning, increases, then the quantity also increases. More suppliers are willing to sell cows, more people are willing to clean houses. Big surprise that the supply curve slopes up.
Supply up.
The demand curve is just the opposite. If the price of an item is high, then the quantity that buyers will purchase is small. As the price goes down, the quantity buyers will buy increases. Seems obvious enough. The resulting demand curve slopes down.
Demand down.
So what's left? Now that we've laid out these curves, we've captured the essence of supply and demand. Isn't that right? We asked Nobel Prize economist Robert Solow.
No, because the supply curve and demand curve have a job to do. It's they that together tell you what price will rule in the market and how many cattle will be sold at that price.
So supply and demand only prepare us for the key purpose they serve. They set the market price by coming together at equilibrium.
2,400 watts.
Equilibrium is the crossroads of economics, where supply meets demand, courtesy of the invisible hand.
Twice.
And this is a key justification for a market system. That an equilibrium price uses a society's resources in the most efficient way possible, given what people want.
Say 1,750 one time, 1,750.
To graph this, imagine our milk cows were cross-dressing meat steers headed for a butcher. Imagine, too, that the equilibrium price is $10 a pound, balancing a quantity of 1,000 cattle. Now, suppose you wanted farmers to produce another 100 hypothetical meat cows for the market, says Robert Solow.
The price at which you could get the farmers to produce another 100 cattle might be $11. That says, and there's a sense in which this is true, it takes $11 worth of resources to produce those extra 100 cattle, $11 a pound to produce those extra cattle. So if you tried to produce a little more, you'd be using up $11 of resources a pound to produce something which seems to be only worth $9 a pound.
Now, Solow's point is crucial. So where did he get the $9 a pound? Well, there would now be 1,100 cattle on the market, 100 more than the equilibrium quantity. So what will 1,100 cattle sell for? Well, the demand curve shows us that. The price would be $9 a pound. Yet it costs producers $11 a pound, see? The extra $2 per pound of resources, grain for feed, water, labor, and so on, are being used to make extra cows that wind up being worth less to people than the cost of producing them.
So there's some waste there. You're spending more to bring this stuff to market than the market wants to pay for it, than it's worth. And symmetrically, on the other side, if you took away 100 extra cattle from this market, then the demand price would be up to $11 higher for a smaller number of cattle. Supply price would be lower with 100 fewer cattle. Farmers would do that for $9.
Again, just look at the demand curve. Lower quantity, higher price. But down on the supply curve, it only costs suppliers $9 a pound to come up with this much meat.
That means there's an opportunity to produce something at $9 a pound that's worth $11 a pound to someone, and it's foolish not to spend those resources.
This is important enough to drum home with yet another illustration. Say I'm the lowest cost producer, down here at the bottom of the supply curve. I graze my cow in my own backyard. I pay myself a pittance, maybe because I can't get a better job. I myself ground the cow up for you end users, if you'll pardon the expression. In short, no one can provide cow meat at a lower price than I can, $1 a pound. And that's the same as saying I'm using up very few of society's resources, as measured the only way we know how, in money. But there aren't very many producers like me, as you can see from this very graph. So if the society is going to produce more meat, it's going to have to use more valuable resources. Not the cheapest labor, not the cheapest land. And therefore, the price per unit will go up. But you can see that society wants to use more resources. At $1 a pound, look how much more quantity demanded there is than supplied. Up here at $2 a pound, there's still more quantity demanded than supplied, which means society is saying, in effect, put together the resources needed to make more meat. Okay, that means recruiting more people to be farmers, which means paying us more than we get in other jobs, and using more expensive land, since the cheapest land will quickly be gone. Redirecting other resources like grain or fertilizer, building new meat grinding machines. That's why this much cow meat is going to cost $9 a pound. But we're still below equilibrium. That is, there's still a shortage, more quantity demanded than supplied. On the other hand, if pretty much everybody has to be recruited to try their hand at farming, the cost of resources, most notably labor, but also land, feed, machinery, and so on, will drive the price higher, creating a surplus. But not for long. If I and producers like me can't sell our meat at this price, the highest cost among us will simply lose money and exit the business, down to where only those who are left can cover their costs. Which is another way of saying can combine the right amount of society's resources so as to just make the product that's most wanted.
Sold her, $2,350. Good trade. Nice buy, 211.
So that's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is amazing. That's the invisible hand. That's how people thinking only about their own self-interest just manage to do something which has some social value.
Well, we're deploying our resources
in an efficient way. We are not spending more to produce something than that thing is worth in the market. Then someone will reveal that it's worth by being willing to pay.
Well, that's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. It's why Adam Smith is a famous man.
A famous man more than 2 centuries after he died, because Adam Smith saw how efficient a market can be, as supply and demand constantly push it toward equilibrium.